My name's Imogen Parker, and I'm the head of policy at the Ada Lovelace Institute. For those of you that don't know us, we are a UK-based research and public deliberation institute tasked with the small challenge of ensuring that data and AI work for people and society. I'm really delighted to be chairing today's event with these fantastic speakers on the transparency of public sector algorithms. It feels like a really timely moment to be looking at the practical tools and the policy development that we need around transparency. I'm sure many of you will have seen the direct reference in the government's newly published national data strategy around public sector algorithms. And of course, this has been a key debate in the data ethics landscape for a long time. It's either the word transparency or one of its familiar relationship words: visibility, explainability, interpretability, understanding. They crop up in pretty much every major data ethics set of principles over recent years. And of course, in the public sector, we've got a baseline presumption that there should exist a level of scrutiny and democratic accountability that just comes with the terrain. However, despite that, when it comes to algorithmic decision-making systems in the public sector, I think it's fair to say that across Europe, we certainly lack consistent, systematic understanding of what tools are in development, let alone enabling us to get to the really crucial questions of what social impact are these tools having. And I think there's a few reasons for why transparency around algorithmic decision-making systems has been hard to achieve. And I don't think that's just because it's reasonably new or comparatively new, or it's technical. I think I want to pull out just three issues before we get onto the substance of the conversation. I think, firstly, we face a real challenge of articulating what the objective study is that we're looking at, the thing that we want to be transparent about. We've got words like algorithm, automated decision systems, predictive analytics, data analytics, and AI, used in a very general way. And that might cover everything from an automated phone service in a GP's office, all the way through to wholesale digital and service transformation in a local authority, shaped by data reform. And as well as the word algorithm being a tricky one to pin down, I think the word transparency also, we can all agree that it's a good thing, but it also covers a multitude of things. So people's desire for transparency might be motivated from really wanting to scrutinise the code, to really get into the technicalities. You might want transparency in terms of understanding frontline decision-making, understanding human interaction with tools, or you might want transparency and really your motivation is about understanding where public money is going, where third-party or private companies are getting involved with public service delivery. And any one of those motivations might take you in slightly different directions when it comes to creating mechanisms for transparency. And then the third issue I wanted to pull forwards is the real challenge of making transparency meaningful. I think we've all seen examples of transparency, of openness that don't really translate into something that people can use. And I suppose by meaningful transparency, what I'm getting at there is perhaps ensuring that someone can understand something that they want to understand that's important to them. So really thinking about the entity understanding rather than the organisation being transparent. And I think we also have to think about how the transparency contributes to or facilitates some form of accountability. And that means that alongside careful thinking about the technical, the algorithms and the mechanisms for transparency, we've got to square that with the available resources to digest that information, to be able to discuss it critically. So for meaningful transparency, we've got to consider the whole ecosystem of information. I would argue that the structures, the capabilities, the institutions that will allow that information to be made meaningful in some way. We've seen Herculean efforts from some organisations trying to dig away at this, the Data Justice Lab in Cardiff, Algorithm Watch, who we're really delighted to have Matthias with us here today. And of course, those organisations using more investigative methods can be effective. But what I, for one, really welcome is what feels like a growing consensus in parts of Europe that there needs to be something more systematic in place. We need a more proactive, standard form of transparency to allow for the sort of public scrutiny that these tools deserve. That's why I am so excited today to have four real experts and speakers who can speak to either tools that they are involved with or issues that they are grappling with around the practical initiatives to create transparency mechanisms for algorithms. So I'd like to welcome, we've got Matthias Spielkamp, who is the director at Algorithmwatch. That's an organization based in Germany that's really been at the forefront of investigating public sector algorithmic practice across Europe. We've got Soizic Penicaud, who's the Open Innovation Officer at Etalab in France, which in part operates to support local and central government fulfill their transparency obligations with regards to algorithmic decision-making systems. Then we're going to hear from Meeri Haataja, who is CEO and co-founder of Saidot, and who's been working on the initiatives of public city-based registers in both Amsterdam and Helsinki that I'm sure many will be aware of. And lastly, we've got Natalia Domagala, who is head of data ethics at the UK Government Cabinet Office. And she is really focused on the issue of public sector transparency and, taking forward that work proposed in the National Data Strategy Commitment to explore appropriate and effective mechanisms to deliver more transparency on the use of algorithmic assisted decision-making systems in public sector. So I'm so grateful to all of them for joining us today. And I'd like to first turn to Matthias. Matthias, you've been advocating for an automated decision-making system register for some time. Perhaps you could just speak a little bit about how the idea for the register came up and your thinking around that, but also, of course, how that sits within the context of work that you've been doing at a national and international level at Algorithmwatch, scrutinising these systems. Thank you so much. I'd now like to turn to Soizic, who at Etalab, as I said, one of their functions is to support branches of local and national government fulfil their transparency obligations. So Soizic, could you tell us a little bit about what the French context is here? What's the landscape in terms of algorithmic transparency in public administration? A little bit about to what extent this is governance, about different actors' responsibilities, and in particular, what is Etalab's role in that?
First of all, thank you to the Ada Lovelace Institute for inviting me to take part in this really, really interesting panel. As Imogen just said, my name is Soizic Penicaud, and I work at Etalab, which is the French government's task force for open data, open source, and data policy. And as such, we accompany public sector agencies and we help them implement the French legal framework on accountability, transparency, and explainability of public sector algorithms. One thing I'll mention is that we are part of the government, so we're not a regulatory body, which is interesting with regards to the French landscape on these issues. And at Etalab, we actually also have an AI lab that that is comprised of data scientists and that helps agencies with artificial intelligence projects. And then as part of the national landscape, every ministry also has their own AI strategy that is coordinated at a national level. But because this is a very cross-topic issue with open data transparency, but also discrimination and data protection, we also work alongside a number of regulatory bodies outside of government, such as the Data Protection Agency, the agency in charge of access to information, which is distinct from our CNIL DPA in France, as well as the French ombudsperson. So to give you a brief background on the French legal framework on these issues, it is grounded in public administrative law, in the right to access administrative information. And essentially, when a public agency uses an algorithm to make an administrative decision about a person or a legal entity, it has to publish a certain amount of information about this algorithm. And in particular, every agency is required to inventory the main algorithmic treatments that it uses and to publish information about the rules and criteria of these algorithms, as well as the way that they're used in the decision. And I'll mention that by algorithms, we don't only mean artificial intelligence algorithms, but any automated decision-making tool. And so we can see that this obligation for information is very linked to and alludes to the idea of public registers that was just mentioned by Matthias. And actually, a few weeks after Helsinki and Amsterdam, a French city called Nantes published its own public register of algorithms. So there are two non-AI algorithms about benefit allocation, and the source code is also published. I'll put the URL in the discussion if you want to go see the portal. In terms of the legal framework, one of its advantages is that it exists, and we've seen that it really helps foster interest in this topic from public sector agencies who wouldn't necessarily have tackled this topic without the existence of a framework. And the other thing that's important is that its scope is quite useful because it encompasses both AI and non-AI algorithms. It is interested in individuals as well as legal entities, so it goes beyond data protection. And it is interested in both fully automated decisions as well as decision assisting tools. That being said, I wanted to raise 3 points that we can also further in discussion about the concerns and obstacles to achieving meaningful transparency through this framework. The first one is that, so concretely what we do is we work with public sector agencies on these issues, and what we see is that they have few resources to allocate to the topic. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but it is the way that it's working right now. And so what we're trying to do is really focusing on the right algorithms to make transparent. Because the risk is that agencies will focus only on what's easy to open and make transparent, and sort of forget about the more harmful tools. And for example, in the implementation of our framework, we get a lot of questions from agencies about what do we mean by main treatments. And so there is a definition problem about what is an algorithm, but also what are the main treatments, what should we focus on. And so what we've been doing is working alongside voluntary public servants from both central and local government on these issues. And we've been conducting in the past few weeks a working group on public registers, and also trying to make sort of a list of potential main treatments for agencies, so that the agencies can simply go through the list and identify whether or not they are using such tools, which helps them understand what we mean, and which also prevents them from using the excuse of, oh, we didn't know this could be an algorithm, or this could be a main treatment. And so we're working on very, very practical things to bridge the gap between the framework and all the guidelines, and how agencies can actually implement this in practice. The second thing I wanted to mention was that the framework is useful, but it is not exempt from limitations, as actually Algorithm Watch's Automating Society report very rightly mentions. And one of its limitations is that it doesn't, it has exceptions for algorithms which are covered by a list of secrets, including, so this excludes national security algorithms and algorithms that are used for fraud control, for example. And so these algorithms are not subjected to the same obligations as the others. And what we see is that this can prevent us from attaining the more useful, the more harmful algorithms and forgetting about them. So the question of where do we put our energy is very important here. And this is more of an open question for the other panelists. I'll stop here because I see that I'm already over time and I'm very sorry. I'll just mention one last thing is, one last thing is how do we ensure that we don't have too narrow a view of algorithmic transparency? Because our framework, for example, is mostly ex post. And the question is, how do we use public registers even or other tools to ensure that we also look at algorithms before their implementation and not only transparency after they're designed and implemented and already in use? And this is a very important question that we need to discuss with everybody, including civil society. And I thank you and sorry for my overtime.
I think that was really fascinating. I'm looking forward to getting into the detail of some of those challenges. Now I'd like to turn to Meeri to talk to us a bit about how approaches are evolving in Amsterdam and Helsinki in that city-focused approach, and in particular what Saidot's role is in that partnership.
Thank you so much. I will first share my screen so that we have that up then. Okay, let me know if you can see the screen sharing. All right, very good. So yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. And you know, I have to say this is amazing group to be with, because like I'm so happy. I don't need to start from like explaining why transparency is important, because that's typically where I spend half of the meeting. So I can go directly into what we have been doing. So yeah, great to meet you, everyone. My name is Meeri Haataja. I'm founder and CEO of Saidot. We started basically our work on the transparency and the whole company almost 2.5 years ago. It was very clear at that moment already that transparency is the foundational principle, and that will be sort of like a very important factor when taking forwards the AI governance. What was mentioned in the previous talk was this fact of having little resources in the public sector. So that was one of the drivers for us to start putting together a scalable solution to tackle this one. And that's what we are doing, building a technology platform that can be used by government agencies, but also private companies to put together, build AI registers, basically have the systematic documentation about the AI systems, algorithms, and then share this information flexibly to different stakeholders. So that's basically that. I wanted to start by showing this article, which we were so honored to see being published by Luciano Floridi. So if you want to familiarize more, I think this is like perfect. Like he has really captured what's the essence of the work that we have been doing. So really wanted to thank about that and like give that as a reference for everyone. So I will go directly into basically what we have been doing, and this work started really like almost 2 years ago by working like very closely on what is the transparency that we need to get into, like putting sort of like a common shared metadata model for that one. And how we realized basically now 1 month ago is that we published, or the cities of Helsinki and Amsterdam. This is the Helsinki version, and the address for the Amsterdam is over there. So these two European capitals basically launched the first pilot versions of their public AI registers, and you are all free to welcome to visit these registers. Let me see what I wanted. So I will just like walk through like first from the sort of like public and citizen perspective. How does it look, and what are the key functionalities there? So first of all, the public registers, these are sort of like libraries about the different algorithmic or AI systems. And by the way, Amsterdam is using word algorithm, and Helsinki is using word AI here. And we are like absolutely looking forward to learn from practice, like where do we draw the lines of these systems. Like we could, I won't go there in detail, what's the definition right now, but there are different kinds of systems like which essentially use data and have algorithms to process those. Impact is very important, especially for Amsterdam. Those are that kind of systems that influence the everyday lives of the citizens. So that's important. So one is obviously to serve this need to have like overview about all kinds of systems that are used in the city context. So that's, you will find this library from both of the registers, like showcasing different systems. And then when you click one of the systems, we go into like basically the essence of the whole thing. So what is the systematic information that we are providing for regarding how these systems work, what are the use cases they are used for, and so forth. For example, they the things that I heard from the previous discussions, maybe this there was some point, like one point in Matthias' speech regarding the consistency, transparency that I wrote down, that I need to dive into that more. But the most of the other things that I've heard so far are part of the registers right now. There are a little bit differences. For example, in this case for Amsterdam's, we are even having a link for to source code of the system in GitHub. That's definitely not the case for all the systems, because many of the systems are developed by third parties. In Helsinki case, all of them. So it hasn't been possible to publish the source code, but like we try to be flexible regarding that, and we need to find flexible ways in order to tackle this kind of fact that the systems are different kinds of and developed either in-house or by third parties. So and maybe one of the key things here is that we have done quite some research and surveys also with the consumers and with the users of this information, and try to find that kind of a model where we are able to serve the wide public, basically people who don't have any background about the AI systems or algorithms, actually not even that much interest to know more about those. What you see here in the overview description and the contact information, those are the most like important ones for the wide public. Then when we go under these right-hand side things over here, that's supposed to serve people who want to know more about the different aspects, and basically this is a layered model where you can find more information based on your interest. One important point that has been like super important already, like driving this whole thing for cities, is the trust among the citizens. So that's what cities are looking for. That comes through transparency, but also participation. So that's something I want to mention, that this is only a teaser in the current version, but the idea is that basically we want to develop different ways for participation for the citizens and the different like users of this information. Now you have these buttons over here. Hopefully in future we are able to basically have feedback forms and so forth in here. So that's one important angle. I will quickly, I'm running out of time, so like let's go to the other side of the coin. This is what is not visible to the users. This is basically the scalable platform that is built for the AI teams of the cities, companies, and so forth who are managing this. So it's essentially a governance tool that we have built like to help in putting together the same information. At the moment, we are having basically one metadata model for all our customers. Where I see where it's going is that we will have different versions. It might be that in UK we need a different version. It might be that in education domain we need a different version of the metadata model. So that's what we have enabled and where we are going, so that we are able to deploy basically industry and customer specific versions of these metadata models. This is sort of like showing in one picture, and I don't know, like I'm happy to share this so that you can have a little bit in more detail, but the structure, how the information at the moment is basically managed over there, and this is shown in the platform basically with the sections, and then all of those sections have the templates which have this information collected from the users, or it can be like not only documentation, but also links to other materials and so forth. So yeah, that's the feedback has been really encouraging. So I'm just like letting you like read one or two sentences from this slide. People see that that's a major step for for the trust between the citizens and governments, and like looking forward to see where we get there with with these cities, and how do we get to develop this further with further cities. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Meeri. Thank you so much for that, and also for giving us a preview of the behind the scenes bit. I think that's not, I'm sure there's lots of people attending who are as nerdy as I am about that sort of thing. So it's great to see how the back part functions as well. Lastly, let me turn to Natalia. I'm sure, as you know, as many organisations were pleased to see a commitment in the national data strategy around the public sector use of algorithms. And I know that's still in consultation stage. We're not asking you to present a blueprint or kind of, you know, give any government new headlines, but it would just be great to hear where you and where the UK government are on this, what you expect, whether there are certain countries you're looking to for models, what sort of research you might do, or just really to just talk through kind of where you are on this journey towards some form of public sector algorithmic transparency.
Great, thank you very much, Imogen, and thanks for everyone. Thanks for having me here. So I would like to start with an attempt to situate algorithmic transparency in the UK within the broader institutional context. So algorithmic transparency is a multidisciplinary area that's right at the intersection of open data and transparency policies and data ethics. And similarly to what Soizic said earlier about the French landscape, our team also comes from the wider transparency and openness movement. And transparency and open data is really nothing new in the UK. So we have a long-standing tradition of this. We have a long-standing work with the open by default policy introduced back in 2012. And that's basically for open data for all public sector departments. And this approach, outlined and developed in 2012, supports the benefits of transparency for a number of desired outcomes. So these are accountability, so driving trust in decision-making by being transparent about the evidence base for decisions, about the deliberation behind policy development. And this very much aligns with reasoning for increasing algorithmic transparency as well. The second is efficiency. So if we release the data, and if we release the models as well in the open, it's easier to spot any duplication, any systemic issues, any kind of errors that can be reviewed and addressed collectively. Again, this is something that is very much applicable to algorithmic models as well. And then the third one is the economic outcomes. So by making data freely available, innovative companies and public sector agencies can use this as the basis of their product developments and innovative services. So as you can see, the policy foundations for algorithmic transparency are very much here already, and they have been since 2012. And what we are doing now is that we building on this foundation when scoping and developing further work on this. So we have the data ethics work with the data ethics framework launched back in 2016 and recently refreshed in 2020. We have the Center for Data Ethics and Innovation and their excellent research. And to me, this proactive transparency in the use of algorithms that we are aiming towards will be a very organic extension of these two policy areas. And I really hope that the fact that we have such strong foundations will be helpful in building meaningful tools. And the commitment that we have in the national data strategy is that we will explore the development of appropriate and effective mechanisms to deliver this transparency on the use of algorithms. And this is a relatively new and an emerging area in terms of what kind of models we have for algorithmic transparency. And the governments around the world are looking at this in the next phase of AI adoption. And I do think that enhancing this capacity to assess and audit decisions made by algorithms should be an essential and integral part of the process of scaling up AI deployment in the public sector. And there currently isn't a standardized global model for algorithmic transparency. So I think the work on scoping this field should be composed of the key two parts. So we've got the technical aspect, so what kind of tool, what kind of reporting mechanism will be used, who will create it, what is the technical work that needs to happen at the back end. And then we have the organizational aspect, so what kind of wider organizational and legislative mechanisms can be deployed. And we're looking at models from other countries and regions. And I'm really grateful to be here today, because we've got experts with international experts on that. And specifically what I'm very interested in is the 5 following aspects of algorithmic models. So first, the format and technical specifications. So we're looking at questions like what kind of models exist, and are they isolated transparency tools, or are they a part of the wider impact assessment ecosystem, like in the case of Canada? Also, what is the thought process behind the particular model? Why those aspects, like the one as Meeri presented, the Helsinki model shows data sets, data processing, non-discrimination, human oversight, risk. So why those aspects, not other aspects? That's something that we're really interested in as well. Then the second thing is accessibility to non-expert audiences and various follow-up activities. And can the public, without any prior knowledge of data or algorithms, understand the information that's being provided? And I think this has been done really well in case of Helsinki and Amsterdam, and also Canada. So they release all the information about the impact assessment in a very accessible format. The Helsinki register is very clear, the website is simple, it doesn't have any expert language, and there are visuals, there are examples. I think it's really accessible, which is fantastic. And so thirdly, there are enforcement mechanisms. Again, example from Canada, they have the directive on automated decision making, they have legal instruments. In France, also really interesting to hear about your legal framework. So that's something we're looking at as well. Then we have the wider organizational structure and legacy within which the model functions, because I think that's really important as well. So in Canada, the directive applies to automated decision systems developed after a certain cut-off date. So I wonder how this could work in other countries, especially on the national level. So how do we make sure that the measures that we implement are really effective and cover as many algorithmic decision-making systems as possible? And finally, last but not least, accountability mechanisms. So that's absolutely key, and I really can't stress this enough. So what can citizens do with this information that's being published? What kind of processes are in place to ensure that the citizens can challenge it? And as you've all have just said, transparency itself is not enough. So there need to be clear accountability structures in place. And I think I'll stop now because I've probably gone over time, but happy to talk more in the question section.
Fantastic, thanks so much, Natalia, that's great. And thank you all for those opening presentations. They're so rich, it's almost hard to know where to dive in. I suppose one question that I've got, and I should also say to our audience, if you want to put in any questions in the chat, I will keep an eye on those over the next 20 minutes or so. One question I've got is this problem of something we've been grappling with, of how we define the object and whether we have a kind of common set of terms for the sorts of things we're looking at. And perhaps that's coming from a research perspective. You want to spot trends, you don't just want to access this as an individual, you might want to access this to understand whether certain types of predictive analytic tools on certain groups are going up or becoming more common. And I just wondered whether whether any of the speakers could reflect on how that works in your own country contexts or in what you're proposing. Does it start from a more descriptive account of an algorithm, or are there some kind of, are you developing an underlying common framework, I suppose, of what it is you're unpicking? I don't know if Meeri, you wanted to, as we've seen a sneak preview of the behind bit, whether there are kind of common codes that sit behind this that get under the skin of this.
Sorry, are you asking regarding the metadata model or the information like that is necessary for the public register, or like I'm not sure if I got the question.
Sorry, so I guess it's around what exactly you're recording when you're asking them to describe the algorithm and the technical processes, and whether that's predominantly descriptive text, or whether you have a kind of typology or a underlying framework that's a little bit more like they tick certain boxes that help you understand different types of practices that are evolving. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is what we are. I don't know, it's like really hard. We should figure out like what's the good name for that, but we have been calling it for ourselves and with our customers in our conversation, like metadata model. Basically, what is all that information that is relevant? It can be documentation type of information, or it can be images regarding architecture and so forth. So and also classification. So that's hard work, and like I think it's never ending. We will develop that metadata model like forever probably. It needs to live in time, and like we need to learn from the feedback that we get. But how we came up with the current version that we are having over there, which I've been like really happy with now that we have openly discussed about that and got feedback. We have found many, like most of the things that people are raising up, like are part of the model. By the way, what you see in the public versions of the registers is not one-to-one with the whole model. So the one important thing is that like on the back end, like we need to be able to serve like complete transparency that is needed for the internal stakeholders and owners of this system. So for example, let's take as an example, accountability. What you see on the public websites, that's the contact information. There is like row, like basically organization, department, and then there is like contact person or role, and how to contact this person, and then there is basically the suppliers. That's what you see. But underlying on the platform, we also have a responsible manager type of role, business owner or service owner. We have the technical owner. That's another role. In earlier versions, we also had like peer reviewer role that is over there. So like not everything is necessarily relevant for the like making public for everyone. So this is something that we need to manage all the time, that what information should be made public and make sense for sharing with wider community. Also, like for example, cybersecurity related information cannot be necessarily like always public for everyone. So basically how we came up with that is going through like all the possible materials that we have found about this topic, research and so forth, then discussing with the experts to validate, is this something that you as a data scientist like think that like does it work this way and so forth, and then hearing the feedback also from the privacy lawyers and so forth, and then also from the users of this information. So that's how we came up with the current version. And as I mentioned, I see that there will be different versions. We will implement human rights impact assessments, algorithmic impact assessments, types of templates over there. We need to have the flexibility to customize the model. So yeah, I don't know, like, did it help at all? But that's how we have addressed it.
That's great, thank you. And just another question come in the chat, which I think links to that, really for all the speakers or any of the speakers. What I love today is that we've had speakers thinking about this as a national level, but also local and city level. And I just wondered if anyone had reflections on the strengths or weaknesses of focusing at a more local level approach versus a national approach, or whether what might need to change in terms of making sense of something at a national or local level. Soizic, I know that you engage with both parts there. I don't know if you've got any thoughts from the French context.
So when it comes to, I'll look at the question again, different solutions for mandatory reporting at the national and the local level. In my opinion, the tools for governance and transparency can stay the same. what's interesting is that the types of algorithms used at a local and central level might be different, and sometimes the most intrusive ones are at a local level in terms of surveillance, for example. In terms of our work on public registers, we've been working together with public servants from the local and the national levels at the same time, so that it enables us also to share the similarities on the topic. And we found that it's very fruitful to have this discussion first together and then to think about the specificities. But a tendency that we have, because we're a central agency, is we have a bias towards only looking at central level. And that's also something that I wanted to pinpoint, that the local level, especially with its tradition of maybe more participation, might actually be where all of these discussions will have more impact in the first place.
Matthias, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I agree with you, Soizic, and at the same time, you know, as I already shown in my quick intro, is that we think there is value in a European-wide legislation on this. Now, I have no idea at the moment, to be really honest, how realistic that is, given the priorities that the Commission has at the moment. But the reason why we think it's valuable is because in many cases, we are talking about organizations, not organizations, companies who are supplying these systems, who are small and medium-sized companies, but also in many cases, we are talking about global companies. And if they, for example, have the ability to deal in different ways with different you know, civil servants, then this puts them in a position of power that is not something that we would like to see continue. Because if you have a European-wide legislation on this, every, let's say, single public servant can always argue, yeah, you see, but we have to make this stuff public because it's a European directive that we have to follow. And that is entirely different in a position of power than to say, oh, you know, we have these guidelines here in our local municipality and we need to follow that. And then they say, well, you can think about it. Either you can use our product or you cannot. And it's up to you. So I think the power asymmetry also needs to be addressed here with regulation.
Natalia, did you want to come in?
Yes, just want to add a few thoughts. Obviously, my perspective is from the national level, but I think very similar to what Soizic said, that you know, the main purpose, so the transparency of the actions, processes, data, and models. The goal is the same, no matter whether we're looking at the national or the local level. But I think the biggest difference between the local and central is actually in terms of public awareness and how engaged the public is in this whole process of increasing algorithmic transparency, and any follow-up activities. Because I think on the local level, residents are more invested in the subject. They're more likely to actually see the use of algorithms in their everyday lives, which you wouldn't necessarily experience that much on a national level, just because of the scale and the scope. And for example, you know, the parking chatbot in Helsinki, I'm assuming that most adult residents with cars will have used it at some point. And this can contribute to increasing their understanding of how AI is deployed. And it can also make them more willing to actually engage with algorithmic transparency measures and providing feedback. And I think this means that in the local case, a higher proportion of the public might be aware of this work, in contrast to what we're experiencing on the national level. But I think this is a discussion we should keep continuing, because it's always good to compare the macro and the micro models and the challenges that we're all facing as well.
Yeah, can I just like comment quickly on that? when we have been developing the basically the approach, what is the necessary information, we actually worked with both the cities and like different government agencies. I think from information perspective, it's like my view is basically that we are interested about the same information on both local and government level. The same information is also relevant for private companies, because these companies are serving the like public agencies as well. And like there is a consensus in the space of AI ethics, AI governance, and the information that we are definitely interested. On the other hand, I definitely think that the local governments are in a position to be the drivers here. They are actively implementing, taking into use the AI system, so they should be the ones also like being drivers here. Also, this whole trust aspect is very concrete and tangible for them. So from that perspective, I would say that the models, and there was a question regarding the platform, the governance tool, the adaptability of that's definitely like built to scale to all of these different levels and different markets, even like we are discussing with North American cities, for example, and universities about the same themes. So far, I haven't come across something that would be so unique that the same approach wouldn't be like applicable if you're able to change the forms or adjust the forms. But there is a like very important role for local governments to show the example and drive this.
Thanks so much, Meeri. There's a question that's come in that's specifically for Natalia, asking about what the government's doing to encourage or ensure public bodies comply with data ethics framework. I actually think that's a wider question that we can ask to the other panelists as well, which is to what extent are actions around transparency or impact assessments or thinking about social impact, should they be seen as ethical, and is that strong enough in the countries you're looking at? Is this about legislation or duties? Does this need to have teeth? Or kind of where should that sit, I suppose, between the sort of emergence that we've seen of data ethics codes that are more optional or soft governance versus hard governance. So perhaps Natalia, you want to start, but if anyone else wants to come in, do just unmute.
Great, thank you very much. Great question. Always happy to talk about the data ethics framework because we've recently refreshed it. So first of all, the data ethics framework is not supposed to substitute the existing legislation in any way. So we do have the Data Protection Act, we have the Equalities Act, and the data ethics framework is a practical tool that aims to enable our data scientists and data policymakers to innovate in a responsible way and to make sure that they're able to identify any ethical considerations and they're able to mitigate them within their projects. And in terms of the work that we're doing now to make sure that the framework is being used, so there are a few different strands of this work. So first of all, we are going around the government and we're trying to embed the framework in as many processes as possible. So for example, we recently worked with the government, Crown Commercial Service, and they have the data ethics framework as a part of their wider AI procurement system. So suppliers that are bidding might be required to demonstrate how they comply with the data ethics framework. So that's an example of what we're doing, basically looking at different processes that require ethical assessments, and we are offering the data ethics framework as one of the components of those processes. So we're also doing a lot of work on the ground with data scientists, so just basically trying to identify the challenges they have, trying to understand how the framework is helping them, and what else can we do. So what are the additional needs? Do we need to involve more external experts to perhaps come and discuss certain specific issues like bias or maybe more proactive transparency? So we're looking at that as well, and we're scoping some work on how can we increase the data ethics skills in the public sector. And I think once we have this whole ecosystem of data ethics, we'll be able to do this work in an even more meaningful way. and this will very naturally connect to whatever we will end up doing on algorithmic transparency as well.
Great, thank you. And there's a question that's come in, which I think is a very good one, around how this fits in with procurement. We know that often these systems are not purely developed in the public domain, and I just wondered whether there's examples from countries about where this sits with the private public and whether there are mechanisms. Matthias, I think it's something that you've certainly looked at.
Yeah, well, I just answered the question in the chat, in the Q&A, and I didn't know that it would disappear when I hit answer. There are activities, Mozilla and AI Now, and of course the municipalities of Amsterdam and Helsinki have put out a paper as a a response to the European European Commission's consultation, asking for a change in procurement activities. And then there are, of course, watchdog organizations like ourselves, but also the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, looking at the use of big data in the public sector. And what can be seen is that it's really very, very hard to find out what is being done. And we actually think ourselves that it can be a good approach to go to take this procurement approach, because when you are changing those rules, if you are successful in changing those rules and implementing more transparency requirements there, then this is a huge lever that can be used. But it's a long way, and from what I understand is, and this is, I need to sort of listen to my colleagues who are closer to the Brussels bubble, that there are very limited chances of revising the procurement directive with something like this at the moment. And this is certainly something that we need to keep pushing for, but it's hard to say at the moment how successful that can be. But of course, this is also a long-term endeavor.
Meeri, did you want to cut or Soizic?
Yeah, I could quickly comment. I would refer to the Amsterdam work on this one, and Helsinki has also, or is in a process of taking into use the same contract terms, or like a version of those. But basically, Amsterdam started a work 1 year ago to put together specific contract terms for the situation when they are buying this kind of technology from third parties, and those terms will, I think they are available for anyone. So, and there is actually a very good document also explaining the rationale behind that. So search procurement terms AI and Amsterdam, you will probably find very quickly from Google that. I think it's super important. I think it's really a role of every person procuring AI in the government segment to recognize that you are in a position to push this through to the private sector as well, and that will have a major impact like to the whole private sector, who is somehow tied to like developing services for public or governments and public sector. So that will, I believe, when this snowball starts to roll, it's going to influence also in the private sector how things are, like how this transparency becomes part of the work. So contract terms, it's super important. Also, I have to mention that so far with the work that we have done with the current vendors, for example, of Helsinki, it's been a very smooth process. So like we are not asking source code, like publishing source code, probably questions would arise if we would do that. But so far, it's been a very fruitful collaboration. So I think we are sort of like over communicating the problems of this issue that we are having third parties. I think it might be even opportunity for the vendors to be visible in the context of AI registers. It's a source for information also for other cities and other government agencies on who has developed these systems and so forth. So there are so many different angles that I think it's important now to push for this transparency as a requirement if you are doing this kind of work for government.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm so sorry to say that we're running out of time. I wish that we'd made this event longer because I feel like there's so much further we could go. And I'd like to make the suggestion without committing any of the speakers that this might be an event I'd certainly be interested in reconvening in a few months' time. It feels like such an evolving question, and it seems that there is so much that we can learn from other countries. And as that, I've certainly found it really fascinating and and thoughtful conversation. So thank you so much. Thank you to all attendees for logging in. We will be writing up a short summary of the event as well as posting the video on our website. We've also published a kind of long read, really just trying to unpick some of the challenges around transparency, but this is very much beginning a conversation and really kind of watching how this evolves over the next few months. So I think we're going to leave it there. I just want to finish by thanking all the speakers so much for really, really excellent comments. And yeah, thanks to everyone and take care. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.